guys, we're the Tattooed Teachers.
In bed.
It's not what you think.
It is definitely not what you think.
Our topic today is the most stressful places on campus. So we're going to be talking mainly to the school teachers, administrators, maybe even the students about the most stressful problem
Certainly older
areas.
students, yeah.
Right.
We'll be right back.
Tattooed Teachers here.
Yes, we are, and we're going to talk to you. That was an odd, awkward little break.
Yeah, it was.
Came up with this topic almost a year ago, based on some notes that I'd put on my education page on Facebook. The most stressful locations on campus, and that sounds a little frightening at first, and that's not the intention. We want to bring this up just to kind of remind, the teachers and administrators, like anybody else, we kind of get in our little grind, we get in our rut, and sometimes we get so focused on whatever the task is in front of us, we forget that there are maybe a few hundred kids wandering around what their lives are like. And one of the things is I've had time to reflect after retirement as an administrator about where most of the problems we had during the day originated.
So especially new administrators could learn a lot from this. The older, more seasoned administrators probably have already figured this out, but if you're a newer administrator and if you're a teacher that's just kind of thinking about what you're teaching next, you might want to listen to this and just kind of remember, what's going on.
And for counselors, as you've dealt with quite a few times, you may, and it's a good chance you're going to have a student or students come to you with some issue that happened on campus, and if you'll kind of tune in, you'll begin to hear certain keywords.
Locker room.
Yeah, locations have a lot to do with the problems that you're going to deal with on a daily basis. And so, just real quickly, we're going to run through these. The first one that seemed to generate the biggest headaches for me were restrooms. And the reason for that, I think, is fairly obvious. It's an isolated area on your campus, or isolated areas on your campus. It's one of the few places where your students can be and feel like they're not being supervised, because most of the time they're not.
There's usually a duty teacher outside the door, but not usually inside the restroom, depending on your school situation. I mean, I know every school is different, but and there's no cameras usually, of course, in the bathroom. Cameras are everywhere else. So.
And for elementary schools, for the younger grades, typically you have a teacher that will lead their class down to the restroom, and the kids go in 1, 2, 3 at a time, whatever the deal is, and the teacher's outside maintaining control of the rest of the students as they rotate in and out. As they get older, and with middle school and high school, certainly, kid needs to go to the restroom, the teacher says yes or no, and they just go. Or in between classes or at lunch or whatever the situation is, and kids tend to congregate in the restroom because they can kind of be themselves at that point. They feel it's almost like a free space to them, and when anybody, adults or kids, are in a place where they feel like there are no rules or are no consequences, they may behave in a way that isn't typical. Restrooms encourage that. I'm not going to get into any bar stories that you may have heard, or maybe you experienced when you were in college, or a young person, about all the activities that occur in restrooms and bars and clubs. But there's a reason people behave that way. It's because they feel a little more uninhibited in there. That's why you have more graffiti, more damage in a restroom, because the kids feel isolated. If a child is allowed to go to the restroom by themselves, and they're in there and there's no one else, and there's that opportunity to and
they're mad at their best friend, they might write it on the wall,
or mad at their teacher, or mad at their principal.
Exactly.
My name's appeared on the bathroom wall on a couple of occasions, and it's never been a good review. Yelp for
Imagine
restrooms.
that.
We need Yelp for restrooms. Mr. Cox is an awesome principal. I never read that. But anyhow, that just be aware.
You are an awesome
Well, thanks, Mommy. For teachers, administrators, to maybe think about when you create your duty schedule, or I was fortunate enough, I didn't have as many cameras on my campus as I wanted. They were really expensive, and my board just, for whatever reason, just didn't see fit to equip us with those like I liked. We were able to position a couple of cameras outside the restrooms because we knew a couple of things ahead of time. We knew that there problems did occur in there, and if something did happen, if there was some destruction, if there was some violence, if we could narrow down the time, then we could review the footage on our hard drive and at least identify some people who were around and then investigate. Second place, and this is probably going to surprise more than a few folks, is the cafeteria.
Yes.
The cafeteria is stressful, not because necessarily of safety issues, unless you have a food fight, but the stress comes from alienation. If you have a new student on campus, and we covered this in our New Kid in Town video, the cafeteria full with hundreds of children can feel like the loneliest place on the planet.
Yes.
Because that is the time when kids have their largest gathering and socialization on most campuses is at lunch. And
So your student government can help fix those kinds of situations, and I know there's a big movement, I think it may have started in Texas, I don't know, but of kids befriending new students, and if you see somebody alone on the bench or whatever at the table, other students are going over and inviting them to sit with them, or inviting themselves to sit with that student.
Yeah.
So those are all good things to do in the cafeteria.
And we've covered how in the previous video about how teachers and administrators can interact with those students and can encourage those outgoing students that you have, and you have them on your campus, to go over and interact. You interact. If you're the kind of staff person that the kids really look up to, and you know you are, you don't have to hang a halo to know that. You know what your relationship is with your kids. And if you're the kind of person who can go over to a kid that's sitting by themselves, maybe a new kid, and begin a conversation knowing you're going to attract other kids, do that. Please do that, because it'll help that new kid out, or that lonely kid, or a kid that maybe has been ostracized by a group because of some group infraction. This cafeteria, a lot of opportunities there to build relationships. The other place that's probably not a surprise, particularly for middle school and high school administrators and coaches, particularly, are dressing rooms on those campuses.
Yes.
In your gyms.
PE teachers, I can't stress enough. I know you don't love to be in that locker room, but that's where you need to be with those students to monitor and maintain order. And I mean, that's just that. There's so many problems that happen in the locker room, and it just could be taken care of if there had been a PE teacher in that locker room with the students. And I know you can't be everywhere at one time, but there needs to be some sort of a standard rules, something within that locker room.
We just finished a video talking just very briefly about, encouraging teachers to establish procedures day one and build on those procedures, reinforce those procedures, reward your students when they do follow procedures. Somehow, PE teachers and coaches, you're going to have to figure out a way to keep all of those kids in there together while they're changing so they can be supervised. The days of the coach going into their office, putting their feet up, spitting in a can, while the kids dress and go out and stretch or do whatever before the activity, those days are over. The liability is just way too great. A lot of software now that schools use to track disciplinaries can identify locations where those problems come up. An administrator, principal, assistant principal, if you'll look at that tracking, that little those analytics, at the end of the year or at the end of each semester. See how many of them occurred in the gym. See how many of them occurred in the dressing room. That you should have a little block to kind of check there for that location, or ours did. And I think that's pretty standard now.
And those three that you talked about were the major places that infractions happen, but also in the hallway and the stairwell. A lot of things happen in there. I know in high school, when they get their class ring, for some reason they want to pop somebody else on the head with that class ring, and it always happens in the hall or in the stairwell. So just little things like that are always going on. That's why, most principals stress teachers be at your door in between classes. Be at your door in between classes. If there's a teacher standing around, they're going to be less likely, even if you're not saying anything to them, they're going to be less likely to do it if they know you can see them. So.
Here's the catch-22. Here's the thing that I would hear from teachers, and here are the things that I said as a classroom teacher.
Right.
If I'm in the hall watching everybody else kids go by,
what's happening in my room?
Who's watching my kids?
It is a catch-22.
Which is why administrators,
you need to be in the hall.
You need to be in the hall.
That's
right. You
right.
need to have your butt in that hall between each class exchange.
But now sometimes that's impossible. When you have a parent and you're dealing with a serious situation in your office, you can't always get out into the hall. It needs to be a team effort. Everybody on the team needs to do the best that they can to supervise the students at all times.
Well, and here's something to look at. When you do create that team or that team attitude toward hall security and safety, consider administrators, when you set that schedule up, have your guidance counselor, hopefully you have a full-time counselor on campus, or at least one, curriculum coordinator or graduation coach. You have people on campus who are not engaged 8 straight hours. You have teachers, that is their planning period or conference period, whatever you call it. Teachers, just because that's your conference period, safety is still at the forefront of what we do every day. So just because, it's my conference time, I don't have to do crap for the next 55 minutes. Yeah, you're still responsible. Get up, get in the hall. That's a good opportunity for you to make a little cruise up and down. Coaches, if you don't have a PE class that hour, make a little circle. Janitors.
And it didn't take that much.
No.
It's such a little thing, and it doesn't take just a minute or two out of your time.
Yeah.
It's just such a little thing to do, and it helps the entire school setting.
Your exchange time is probably less than 5 minutes. Your janitorial, your custodial staff, get those folks in there. Let them just do a little walk or have a position where they're posted up. Outside the restrooms where they can just hear. They don't have to be standing in there, but when kids go nuts, you hear it and you say, hey, let's go. Same thing with locker rooms. There are ways to combat this. Principals, you just have to take the time. We've been talking to teachers about establishing procedures. You need to establish some procedures too. From day one, that every teacher needs to know where their position is at every exchange.
And I will say that a lot of times the principal is so caught up into all the other things about the school is they forget to tell what the duty teacher their duties are. So you need to principals, you need to think about that and say, look, here, explain it to them in the beginning. We're all a team. We're here for children's safety. Every time you're not engaged in your classroom, be in the hall. Be just for those first 5 minutes when everybody's getting where they're going. Help us out.
Yeah, that if the assistant principal handles the discipline, the assistant principal, it kind of needs to be within their purview to establish who's where and why and cover those procedures, because they're going to be the ones that have to deal with the reports. When a disciplinary report is written up, the assistant principal needs to know, well, so-and-so was supposed to be at this position, so I can go to that person and find out, what did you see, what did you hear? It sounds simple, but I know it's not, because I did it. But start from day one and get those, and you may have to tweak it a little bit when you begin to find hot spots on your campus, or blind spots is probably a better thing to say. Blind spots, and kids will discover those. I mean, they're like maximum
CSI.
Security. Yeah, they're gonna figure out pretty quickly where the supervision is and where it's not. So, want to throw that one out there. As always, guys, we appreciate your support. Please like, please subscribe, please comment, Share some of your experiences with us. Where are places on your campus that you're seeing problems?
Right.
Parents, if your kids have come home and had issues with some of these areas, how did you resolve it?
We're retired. We're trying to help other teachers who were in the same position that we were at one point in our career, and we're just trying to give the best advice that we can come up with now that we've had the time to sit back and think about how it should be.
Exactly.
we want to help you. That's our whole goal.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Bye.